Brands on Brands.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This week, we're talking about how to introduce yourself both in person and online. Check it out.
In a world where content is king and your reputation is your brand, how do you build a brand that matters? Welcome to Brands on Brands, a home for those that think different and push their boundaries. This is where branding that matters lives. Now, here is your host, Brandon Berkmeyer.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Brands on Brands. I'm Brandon Berkmeyer, your personal branding coach, and I believe that building a brand that matters is the only way for a person to thrive tomorrow. Appreciate you guys being here. Today, we are doing another solo episode talking about how to introduce yourself, the words you use both online and offline in person to introduce yourself, your service, your business to the world. The words you use are important, and that's what we're going to dive into. I'm going to give you 5 templates that you can use today to dive into that. But first, if you guys are just tuning in for the first time, or if you are looking for help one way or the other, just want to let you know my website is there for you as a resource at brandsonbrands.com. And I am actually currently looking for 10 students to work with one-on-one on a weekly basis for my 6-month program. And if you are someone who's thought about building your personal brand, and this is a little bit of interest to you, feel free to set up a free call with me. Just go to brandsonbrands.com/coach, and we'll see if there's something that will work out, to see if we're a fit for each other. That being said, let's dive into the show.
Brands on Brands.
All right, how to introduce yourself online and offline. Let's jump into it. So what I want to introduce to you is this idea of ahead of time coming up with some templates that you can use, that you can fill in, that you can think about and brainstorm ahead of time, and that you can practice so that when you are now on the spot, especially in person, you know what to say to people. Because if you're like me, it's easy to forget the most effective way to present who you are in a way that makes people remember you, but also makes them know if you're someone that can help them, or are you someone that they can refer to other people, right? So I know a lot of the time, the first kind of fallback is that we end up being a little bit vague, right? We tend to be not as specific as we can be. That's a common mistake that we all make. Or sometimes you go to the other spectrum and you're way too specific to the point where you are completely boring the person you're talking to, right? And the same thing can happen online. Sometimes you can be too brief and someone can't tell because it's too vague if you're for them, or you can be way too descriptive and no one wants to read all that text on, say, your homepage of your website or on your about page, right? Or even in your bios on social media. Are you using the right words that effectively tell people this is exactly what I do and who I'm for, right? So the context of where you use these templates is important, but just want you to realize that if you do this work ahead of time and actually take time to think about what you're going to be saying and writing, and you do that work ahead of time, then you will be better prepared when these moments come up, and you'll actually take the time to fill in the right words on the places where you live and your reputation lives online. So here are 5 simple templates that I'm going to call my 5 identity scripts that you can use right here, right now, right? And so maybe you can do this as you're listening. Start to think about, type in on your phone some things that you could say or that you would say when you answer these questions, right? So the first one is the easiest one. It is the most vague, the most simple. I call it the simple script, right? And this one is simply, you tell people what category or industry you are in, and that is it. What does that mean? Well, you asked me, hey, Brandon, what is it that you do, by the way? Oh, I'm in advertising and marketing. And that's it. You just leave it at that. I'm in advertising and business coaching. Whatever you want to say, you pick a category so that they can kind of gauge, is this an industry that is something that they're interested in? And based on the conversation, you can decide to go deeper with one of these other templates. But start there. Start somewhere simple, because sometimes people are genuinely just not ready to hear your full story. And especially if it's your first time meeting them, I would lean into this script the most, because if they're truly someone that might be a client for you in the future, it's your job to find a way to continue to meet them and run into them to eventually be able to expand on who you are and how you can help. But it's going to start with you actually asking more questions about them, who they are, what they do, what they need help with, what their challenges are. You leaning into being an asker and someone who's curious about them and what they do is always going to be your best bet. So you don't need to explain too deeply when you're first meeting someone what you do. You just have to start with by saying the industry you're in, or at least you could say your title too. That's the other way to go with this. Sometimes I could say, I'm a personal branding coach, and I leave it at that. Those are two approaches to the same thing, but you start at the broadest level. Your title or your category or your industry are the easiest, and you leave it at that, and you continue to ask questions about who they are and what they do. All right, number 2, I call it your identity statement. The first one was your simple script, and this one's your statement script. Actually, there you go, statement script. So for statements, this is a pretty standard format for anyone out there who's helping you learn how to write your resume and things like that. Your statement is going to be simply diving into who you help, how you help them, and why. Can you answer those 3 questions? Think about it right now in your head. Who do you help? Who do you serve, right? Who are your clients? Describe them. How do you help them? Like, what do you help them with, right? What do you help them accomplish? What are the results that come from that? And then third, why is that important? Why do you do it, right? So the way you can frame that is a very simple sentence, and it's, I help blank, do blank, by blank, because blank. So let me fill those in for you, right? Those 4 things. So I help, for example, me, I help entrepreneurs. That's the audience, right? I help entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or coaches, but like pick one, right? I help entrepreneurs do their personal branding or build their brand story, right? I help entrepreneurs build their brand story, or I can flip that. I help entrepreneurs get more clients by telling their brand story because, and that's where I fill in my why, because your brand is the most important reason you will get clients, or something like that. You figure out how you want to tell your story, right? And as each of you fill that in and take steps to fill in the blanks, and I'm doing it off the top of my head, I'm not looking at what I've written down before, but if you guys take the time to write those things down and fill them in, you'll be better prepared to answer those questions. Now, once you have the template, you can modify it, right? Because the truth is, you meet lots of different types of people, and sometimes different people are your customers, and you would speak to them differently. So if I speak to an entrepreneur, I might say, I help entrepreneurs with their marketing and telling their story by helping them work on their message and also getting found online. Because I know when you're starting as an entrepreneur, getting the message right and getting some people to find you just so you can get those first customers is the most important thing. And I'll leave it at that, right? That's my simple statement. And I'll cut that down to be less wordy, but that's if I'm in conversation, that's how I would conversationally explain it if they wanted to go there. But usually, again, I would start with the more simple explanation and then say, well, what do you actually do? Like, dive into it. This is what I might tell them next. And that hopefully generates some curiosity for them. If I'm talking to a podcaster, because I do work with podcasters, I might say, I'm in the advertising and marketing space. I'm a personal branding coach. I help podcasters to develop their personal brand by working on their content strategy and marketing plan, because I believe that if you build a show that's important, it should be found by the right audiences. So, you explain what the importance of these things are as you're going. So that's the statement. That was number 2. So we have the simple explanation, which is the industry, the statement, which is a quick fill in the blank. The third is I'm going to give you, it's a little bit different, a little bit more cheeky, but I think this is actually an important one that a lot of people skip. And I think of it as almost like a slogan. So we'll call it your slogan script, right? And this is what people will remember about you. The thing that you want to be known for, the thing that captures a little more of an essence of who you are, and it taps into the why you do this, right? And I know Simon Sinek has a great book called Start With Why, and an amazing TED Talk on this. And if you haven't read it or looked at that TED Talk, go check it out. It'll help you understand this a little bit better. But people don't always work with you because of what you can do for them. They work with you because of who you are and how passionate you are about it. Sometimes it's like they have to know, like, and trust you first and be passionate about the person you are to believe that you can deliver the results that you say you can, right? So if you tap into your why you're doing this and you can convey that in an effective way, it helps you be memorable. And if nothing else, giving someone something catchy to remember is going to stand out in their head. So when they have to explain you to someone else, it's easy for them. And some people will do this, like their slogan might be something cheeky, like, I am the Batman of copywriting, right? Something like that. Or I am the Wonder Woman of graphic design, right? That's kind of catchy, and you can easily remember that, or they draw a parallel to something like that. And another way to do it is to, instead of making it easy to comparison, you do tap into the, not just what you do, but the why you do it. So for me, my slogan might be, your voice matters. At the top of my shows, I say, build the brand that matters. When I'm giving talks or I'm guesting on a show, I make sure that I include in my story and in what I convey that I believe that everyone's voice matters and that your brand matters. And then I expand on that. But if I keep saying this over and over again, people remember that Brandon is the Your Voice Matters guy. He helps people work and develop their voice, right? That's ownable. That's something that you can use over time and be repetitive with. So work on your slogan, because it might help you try to identify what you want to be known for over time. And think of it as like, it might be what you would put on a book cover if you had to write a book, right? All right, that's number 3. Number 4 is going to be your story, right? So this would be your story script. And this is going to be anything that explains in a more interesting way why you're doing what you're doing, or who you are and why it's important, right? So we all have a story. Usually it's going to be some kind of origin story to how you came to be where you are, or it's going to be an aha moment, a turning point or a pivot point in your journey that led you to what you're doing, that helped you get past the pain that you were in, that you solved, that now you help coach on, or something like that. Or the point where you realize something that now is what you help clients with. The moment that you solve the problem that you are out there helping people with or serving people with. So, and if nothing else, it's just your origin story that explains your experience, right? So one way to frame that for me could be to talk about, my 18 years of experience at advertising agencies and working with different brands, and the stories I have from working on brands like Coca-Cola and Apple, and maybe an example of one of those lessons I learned working with them that I can tell in a meaningful way, right? That explains my experience in branding. Another way to approach it, and I've done this before, is to talk about why personal branding is so important to me, why podcasting is so important to me. And I say this all the time. It's because when I was leaving corporate, I realized that I was a resume, but I had no reputation. And I needed to develop that reputation quickly to be an entrepreneur. So to do that, I had to develop a personal brand. And that set me on this journey of figuring out how to do that. And now, because of the time I put into creating content and building community and making an impact and mattering to people, I now have a personal brand that helps serve my business, right? So that is how I developed my reputation. So that's a story that that you can model and say, this is, what are something that happened in my life that I can use to help explain to people who I am and how I help, right? So this is all doing the same thing. It's an introduction of you to someone else. And that might be better served, context-wise. That might be a great story to put into your about page, but not on your homepage. Or it might be a great thing to put in a speaker bio or in a 1-hour podcast spot. But you wouldn't tell a long story like that if it's, a 1-minute clip. So it just depends on where you want to put these things. And then the last one is number 5. And this is going to be your speaker script, which is really just understanding, if I was going to be interviewed and if someone wanted to talk to me about what I do, what would I talk about? What are the couple of topics that I would feel comfortable talking about all day? And how would I frame that as an interesting subject line, right? So for example, in my space, I might say, as a speaker, I talk to people about how to build authority with an expert personal brand, right? That's one example. Or I talk to people, I educate people on how to leverage your podcast as a content engine, right? So when you can explain to people those things that you love to talk about, it helps them understand what you do, or if you are right for their show, or if you are right to be featured or to maybe guest speak, or to even help someone as a customer. That might work, because even though they're just talking about the content and the things that you like to teach, they can expand that on their own to say, okay, well, that's something I'm interested in, or someone that I know is interested in. How do you actually do that? And then you can get into how you serve people, right? So each of these are just tools for you to use. And my point is, if you can craft these ahead of time and continue to work on it, and honestly, this is a process that evolves every month with every experience. So every time I go to a new conference, every time I go on a new show, or just regularly on a monthly basis, I am rewriting these things down somewhere so that I can look at them and say, am I happy with how I am introducing myself? And I'll tweak it and change it to make sense for the environment and the context. But as I get more and more comfortable with my template, or even as I evolve and my services change, I continue to adapt this and evolve this as well, so that people always know, based on right now where I am in my business, how I can best serve them, so that if someone that needs that help, they know to send them to me. And B, it's just easy to remember who I am in the context of their relationships. And hopefully it's memorable if you've made a good impression, right? So those are my 5 templates, my 5 scripts to help you introduce yourself both online and in person. I hope that was helpful for you guys today. And if it was, feel free to reach out to me, DM me on Instagram, take a picture of this episode, let me know that you liked it. And even if you want some help with your scripts, reach out to me, brandsonbrands.com/coach. Would love to set up a time and see if there's something we can do together. All right, guys, I appreciate you listening. And as always, get out there, take little steps to keep moving your personal brand forward. And I will catch you guys next time.
You've just taken your marketing knowledge to another level with this episode of Brands on Brands. But we have plenty more ways to help you build a brand that matters. Head over to brandsonbrands.com for resources, as well as access to our blogs, videos, and exclusive coaching sessions with your host. Be sure to visit brandsonbrands.com.